so we have time for questions. If you have any questions.
You said early on, you mentioned the relationship between sort of cultural fictions and the place that culture sort of sprung up in. And you mentioned that you weren't going to go into great detail about why monotheism has been up and down this. If you've got the time to,
well, the reason why I didn't want to go into details is that I don't know the answer, actually, but it is curiously the case, in the same way that it is curiously the case with the Vikings having this extremely non-optimistic mythology. You can sort of guess by reasons of that. I think the monotheism thing is because this is a speculative, okay? I think that what they are is a migration story. The fact that they're in deserts may be secondary to the fact that they're, early on, gods belong to places. Okay, you need quite a lot, because there's quite a lot of places. Every oracle can't be run by the same gods, you'll have quite a lot of gods. And they tend to be gods of very fixed places and very fixed rituals. As in, you must sacrifice a white cow here and a spotty sheep there. You go out into the desert, you need a god who will travel with you. And that seems to me is the absolute mythological thrust of the whole Genesis text. And it's really quite interesting to compare that with the Exodus text later on when they come out of Egypt, which is a much more kind of religious project all around. I mean, you know, Abraham has terrible problems with his God, including the point where God says something to him, he finds it so hilarious, he laughs so much that he falls over. You don't get that very often in some even song, it has to be said. But it's an actually problematic text. There's a shift in that text that isn't fully worked through, I think, between matrilineal culture and patrilineal culture. It is important that Sarah has the baby. They've got to have a baby so that they can be a nation, but when he actually has the baby with someone else, it's no good. I think you see that very clearly. So that going out into that desert experience, whether it's historically grounded or not, seems to really destabilise the culture that you're in. And you see that. The only other place, curiously enough, where there's anything that resembles monotheism, they tried it out a bit in Egypt, desert culture, and in a singular group of Australian Aboriginals. And apart from that, it never happens. Because most deserts don't have a lot of people living in them. To develop interesting cultural and mythological phenomena. I'm very curious about whether it's something about the silence that you start hearing your God who speaks to you one-to-one, or whether it's this business about needing a God who will travel with you, so it becomes a much more personal one-to-one relationship that detach the God from the place of the temple. It's a bit more complicated than that, of course, because they then spend the next 2,000 years trying to get a temple. But even so, that's going to be the only place where God is. You will have to go there. So whether you've got the Judaic narrative of that, or the Christian narrative of that, or the Islamic narrative of that, with absolute insistence that it's only one God, in all those cases, emerges uniquely from this highly precarious desert experience. If you have any further good ideas about why that might be, tell! I'm really, really interested. My next book, I hope, is going to be about migrations, not the circular ones, but the ones, not the there and back again ones that so many animals do, but the actual permanent ones, and what kind of myths that throws up, and whether there is, in fact, innately instability. You know, if the continents wander about, although on the whole, so far as I know, continents aren't particularly monotheistic. But one of the reasons why I want to really look at it is I really would like to understand, as a non-desert monotheist myself, what that connection is. It may turn out it's not there, which would rather spoil my book, if I was honest, which I might not be. But at the moment, all I can do is observe it as a phenomenon, and scatter some ideas around it and see what sticks, actually.